I'm really happy to introduce my friend and colleague, Rick Plaut.
Pleasure to be here. Nice meeting you all.
And you'll say more about yourself, right?
If necessary.
I think it was in our in that video, the pre-recorded introduction to our session. How many people saw that? Did you all get a chance to see our video? Good. Okay. So Rick introduced himself there. So we've both got a background in entrepreneurship and marketing and management and business analysis, finance, the whole gamut. So we're here to help you learn some tools, get some hands-on experience to actually create something and move it forward. And you'll be working in small groups and getting some projects going. So we're going to cover all of that. And then at the end, we're going to cover some stuff about pitching. And if you got to the resources folder, you'll see that there was something there on executive pitching, because a week from today, there'll be a pitch competition. So the groups that we're going to now create will be giving a pitch next week, and you'll vote on who you think the best pitch is. So you all ready? Rock and roll. We're going to dive right in. And let me just, by show of hands, how many of you did get to see the resource folder? Not everyone. Okay, so we're going to do some stuff. I'm going to share, we'll be sharing our screens so you'll get to see some of the stuff. If you want to follow along, you can go to the ITD Moodle site and you'll see that there's a resource folder there. If you have trouble getting to that, let me know. I can share a Google folder with you at some point, and then you'll be able to access all the stuff that way also. So let me give it over to Rick Plaut to get us started.
Well, I first have to say how excited I am to be here, to meet you all and get to interact with you internationally over the electrons that flow between us. Just a couple of things for background. So many of you, probably similar to me, discovered things about yourselves as children. And one of the things that I found is that I always wanted money to buy things. And my parents were not very forthcoming. So I had to figure out how to do that on my own. And I became an entrepreneur at a very early age, making little pizzas to sell to my friends. Of course, I didn't know about economics at that point, and I didn't realize that the ingredients I was taking from my parents' kitchen and selling to my friends for a penny or two were probably much more expensive than I was getting money back for. But anyway, I was trying to figure out how to make money to buy stuff, and I found entrepreneurship again much later in life, after I had a series of corporate jobs, and it reawakened in me. So I realized again, not just that I wanted money, but that I actually enjoyed the process, the learning and the building of something. And I'm hoping that some of that rings true for you as well. Anyway, that's just by way of some more introduction. So Rick, if I remember correctly, the plan for today is very shortly, in a couple of minutes, to split you all into groups and just give you a very, very simple assignment. Take one of the ideas you already have or come up with a new one for a project, for something that you want to build, and identify for yourselves who your customers or beneficiaries or users will be. Use whatever term you want, but it's the people that will actually benefit from and use whatever it is that you're building or the service that you're creating. So it's very simple. Come up with an idea, name it, and think about who the customers are. You're only going to have 10 minutes. You're going to be in a random group. So part of this is how well do you come together as a team? It should be, make it easy. Don't get too stuck up on it. And don't worry about being perfect. Just get something started. Because generally what we found, I think, Rick and my experience is, whatever we start, where we finish is usually nowhere near what we started with. So I don't think it's so important to start well. It's more important to finish well. Rick, did I miss anything there?
No, that was good. That was good. Does anybody have any questions? So when you get into your breakout rooms, you're gonna create a project, you're gonna name it, and you're gonna tell us, you'll be prepared to tell us who's gonna benefit from it, right? Who wants it? Are you ready? Okay, everyone's back. So how did it go? All right, you got some projects to tell us about, some ideas and some customers. So let's just pick a few of them. Who wants to talk first? Don't be bashful.
Okay, my group discussed about two main ideas. We discussed about improve the connections in farmers and merchants and produce vegetable milk. We believe we have many vegetarian people, vegan people in our generation. So we believe to produce vegetable milk with organic food, organic products, we can deliver vegetable milk to people, vegan and vegetarian people. So we call this project like bio milk.
Okay, so it's milk to who in particular?
We produce vegetable milk for vegetarian and vegan people.
Got it.
We
Okay.
have few years.
All over the world, or in one particular place, or
Maybe we start in particular place, but it's a very common product. We could expand to our entire world in different scales.
Okay, so you want world domination. Got it. I see a hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our idea, it is called Crop It Up, as in crops because of agriculture, but also because of cutting waste. So the idea is, it started as with agricultural waste, like all the food that's in good condition, but it goes to waste. But then it moved quickly towards cities and all the stuff that's left in marketplaces and stuff like that. So we thought that food that is going to waste is free. You can get it for free, and that's raw material that you can take for free, and then you can process it and make a product. That's already done by some companies. They take their lower quality products and make the lower quality materials, and they make a low quality product. But the idea of this is collect that stuff with trucks or something and process it in a good quality product that then you can sell for an inferior price. So you would make money and you would reduce waste.
And who would you sell it to?
Since it would be made with material that's collected from the streets, literally, it would be cheaper. So it would be a cheap alternative for people with lower incomes. So you can provide a good quality food for people. So there's not an exact demographics, I suppose, like lower income people.
Okay. All right, so that's two groups. Do we have a third?
Yeah, our group was actually similar to what Vicente was talking about. So we were thinking, we didn't come up with a name, but we were thinking, we started with a problem because as Octavio mentioned, like we were thinking about it and we said, okay, we'll start with a problem. We were thinking about in my city, we have a lot of beer gardens, like these restaurants. We have like homemade beer, like they make their own beer and small industries of beer, and they have a lot of waste also. So we are thinking about taking that waste of beers. With the specific name, I think I had it here. Is of this, let me check. Yeah, it's brewer spends grain, like the main waste of beer production. So taking that and making it, there are a lot of projects written about it and everything. Like it came also because of an idea I had working with an NGO that I worked, but we were thinking about making it, taking that waste and bringing it back to a production line and making it to, for example, bread or different products. That because this waste had a lot of good properties and good, like, could be reusable in so many ways. So our idea was initially to make bread out of this waste, and maybe at an initial phase, bring it back to these same beer gardens or restaurants and everything, so they can maybe try it out or give it for free when they give you a beer or something. And if it's good, because one of the problems is that these products don't taste really good. So if we can maybe enhance it or make it better after a time, that we can even sell it in different places or making it like an actual product.
So your customer group are people who enjoy eating terrible tasting bread?
No. The thing is, like, bringing it back to the same place that is making like this waste. That was our idea. Like take the waste, like trying to make it into a product and bring it back to them, like so they can reduce waste and maybe like start offering a product, and then let's make some research and trying to make this product eatable and good, because it has good properties. I know, like this is true. Like this waste has a lot of things that can be usable, but it's not hard. Like if you mix it up with like regulars, like a lot of if you mix it up with another ingredients and everything, you can make a really good product. But of course, that makes like you need more investment and more money. But yeah, just that's what we came up with.
Okay. Food seems to be the big theme here. We've got 2 agricultural products and recycling beer waste. So are you all hungry? Are you waiting for dinner? Is that it? Okay. Shall we have at least one more? Is there another product?
Okay, my team was with Samaya, Seva, and Paula, and we thought about Green Pickup, which is a company that hire people that is there, and they are going to deliver like glass bottles to the companies like Heineken or Pilsen, big companies of beer and wine. And they will solve the problem of recycling like bottles, which is a problem in Brazil and in Uruguay, and I will say that in the rest of the countries.
Okay, so you're recycling containers, mostly glass bottles, bringing them back to the breweries and the wineries to reuse. Yeah.
Yes.
And they'll buy these from you.
Yes.
Okay.
And the first investment is going to be Heineken, like the company of beer.
Okay.
We thought about that too.
Let me ask.
You
let
like
me ask.
Go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
I was just going to ask a general question. Do you think it matters if another business is already doing one of these things that you might have competition? Does that affect this?
I think that you should have like if you are in the same community, perhaps an alternative business model, something that adds value to your company and your product or service.
Mm-hmm.
But you can compete with others, of course.
Right.
Or you can be like work together if it is one of the values of your
right.
company.
It shouldn't stop you that someone else is doing this, right? you should probably take it as a clue that maybe there's something real there, and it should encourage you.
Yes.
Great, great.
So, so Rick, I'm gonna put up a business model canvas.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I share my screen, notice how we had you thinking about a product and a customer. So if you have a great idea for something, but there's no customer for it, then all it is a good idea. Right? It needs to have somebody, you need to have somebody who wants that idea. They want to use it somehow. They want to buy it. They need it. They desire it. And you want to get pretty detailed about who that customer is. So we're going to show you our first tool. So you're looking at something called a business model canvas. Can you all read that? That's pretty clear. And you'll notice that there's, I think you can all see, can you all see this pink arrow floating
Yeah, we
around? Okay. So you'll see that there's all these blocks of information. And what we had you thinking about just now is this block called the value proposition and this block of customer segments. So Rick, you want to dive in?
Yeah. So purposefully, we started with those because if you don't have those things and if you don't discover them eventually and be right about them, nothing else matters, right? So all the rest of these boxes don't matter if you don't know who your customers are and if you don't have this thing that you're doing. So maybe that's obvious, but we just want to stress that. And really today and anytime, I think when you're beginning something, that's where an overwhelming amount of your effort should be determining that and the relationship between those two things we call product market fit, right? So the value proposition is all about your product. Customer segments are your market. So product market fit. Your product has to fit the needs of the market. Your market needs to want and be able to afford or obtain your product, right? Everything has to work between them. And if they don't, nothing else matters. But we'll talk about what those other boxes are very briefly, just to make sure you understand our definitions. So between those, the box on the sort of the middle between them, customer relationships, that refers to the type of relationship that you will have with your customer. So will it be high touch, right? So if you go into a luxury goods store, immediately an employee comes up to you, offers you a cup of coffee and wants to make you feel good about being there and is really taking care of you. And then on the other side of it is an automatic relationship or an automated relationship. For example, the one you might have with Amazon, right? Where you never talk to a person, you interact with an algorithm. So customer relationship defines the type of relationship that you will have with your customer. Below that, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add something really quickly here. This relationship that Rick is talking about has to do with how do you get, keep, and grow your customer base. So going back to what Rick just said about this product customer fit, the product market fit, you have initially you want at least one person. You need to have one customer or one user or one stakeholder who says, yeah, I really want those recycled bottles, or I want that vegan milk, or whatever else that your idea was. That's the first thing you want, but then you want more than that, right? You want the next customer and the next customer and the next customer. And how do you get them? So how do you keep getting those customers? And that's what this relationship is all about. I want to add that we keep talking about this like we're talking about a business, but this actually works for even a project. So I come to Mount Holyoke College and I want the college to teach entrepreneurship. So that's my value proposition. Brand new idea. The college has never taught it before. And I convinced them that they should be teaching that. So that's my idea. Now the question is, who wants to take those courses? So I need to identify who is going to be my students. If I don't have students signing up for that course, then it's a great idea, but I don't have any reason to teach it, right? Same thing with you guys. ITD says we want to have a program that will serve you, give you information, but you have to exist. We have to know who the you is. Who are you? And then we have to figure out how are we going to get this to you, what the application process looks like, how are we going to get you involved in the program. So now we've got this connection going on between our idea, who wants the idea, how do you benefit, and how do we get you engaged in it? Is it all making sense? Yeah.
I think it's a great point, Rick, because obviously this is a tool that is multifunctional. This doesn't just relate to business or projects. You could use it socially, for example, right? Do a group of friends of mine want to go downtown to share a pizza, right? So the customers are my friends. The pizza going downtown is the product. How do I reach them? Well, maybe I send them all a text message. Or maybe I feel like I really need to sell them, so I go knock on their door. Anyway, that would be the relationship. Let's just move on down. We'll cover this quickly because, again, we're going to concentrate on customers and value propositions. The channel, that's how the thing that you're doing will reach the customer, right? So the channel for Amazon is the post or private delivery services. That's how they get it. The channel for a pizza is the restaurant or perhaps a grocery store, supermarket where I might buy it frozen, right? So depending on what your thing is, that's how it reaches the customer, and how you reach them is the channel. Revenue streams, that's pretty obvious, right? That's the type of method you will use to charge people. Will it be a subscription? Will it be metered? Will it be through taxes? And then how much, right? So the details about how much you'll be making from whichever source you choose. To the left of that, the cost structure. What will it cost you to do this, right? So even if you have very inexpensive materials from waste, what is your infrastructure costing you? What does it cost you to distribute? Is there a cost of carbon being used in your process? Above that, the key partners. Who else can help you? Is this possibly a joint venture? Is there, as we were talking before, a competitor that you could work with to do this? The key activities, what are the things that you're going to have to do to get this done? A list, right? Starting with determine if there's a real need or something like that. The key resources, what will you need to do this? Is there technical help that you'll need? Is there a building that you'll have to work out of that you'll either have to rent or borrow or buy? And then, of course, those costs would be down below. So this all has to be in alignment, right? You can't have a whole lot of resources that you need and then not have them listed under the cost structures. So this all has to work together. And this has a certain beauty to it because you'll see it's all on one page. So if and when you use this tool, you'll want to make very short notes in each box, not an essay. It has to be really quick. I'll look at it as if it were a dashboard, right? Just giving you the clues of what needs to happen. And this then becomes your map as to how to build your enterprise.
So let's take one of the three that we just heard about and see if we can map it out here. So, and then we're going to show you what some of the magic is about doing this, why you go through this. And as Rick said, you end up with this kind of a business plan on one page that gives you a map and a guide on what do I have to do to make this thing happen. So my inclination is to use the recycled bottles, but we could use any of the ones that anybody came up with. So who would like to put theirs up on this?
Well, I would suggest that we could all do that, right? So let's just choose recycled bottles. It doesn't just have to be the team that worked on it that came up with that idea. You all should be able to answer these questions or fill in these boxes for that business, and I think it'll be a much richer experience if we all participate.
Sounds good. So let's start. Let's start with the bottle project. So the value proposition here is recycling containers to be reused by beverage companies and bottlers, right? It's also, I guess I need to expand this. There we go. Okay, so that's the, do I have it? Is that the product?
Yeah, and we can talk more about what else is involved in the value proposition, but I think let's just get it started with one thing there.
And who did you say?
Yeah, I already heard two customers for this, right? So one would be the beverage companies.
Whoops. I gotta hit the right keys, right?
Right. And who would be the other customer that's obvious?
Geez, why am I making so many mistakes? Here we go. Beverage companies. And who else?
I would suggest it's the people who have used the bottles, right? So if we take the bottles from them, that relieves them of the need to right? So
What bottle users?
Yeah, bottle purchasers. So let's blow that up in a lot. Who else? One way to think about customer segments and stakeholders is who else benefits from this? Who else cares about it?
Anybody?
So
like the state?
Who?
Okay, why does the state care?
Because it's environmentally friendly and it helps communities like get rid of waste and reuse.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it reduces their costs if they don't have it go into their waste stream. It keeps our towns prettier, right? They don't have to pay people to pick up the trash. Who else benefits? Do consumers benefit? Will there be a lower price perhaps?
Who's the group that worked on this? Who came up with this?
It was my group, but we were thinking all together, so
That's okay.
So when you were thinking about this, why did you come up with, what was the purpose of doing this?
one of my partners talked about the problem that beer and wine companies have in Brazil. And as I'm not sure if it's a stakeholder, but we talk about the benefit will be for the society in general because it's related with the environment.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you got the public, right?
Yes.
The public. Let's make sure we spell that right.
Right. There's a greater good, right? So we're limiting environmental damage.
So we've got a value proposition which describes some feature and function. And we have people who will benefit from that. Does that sound right? Okay. Who is going to pay for this? Who's the buyer? If these-
So yeah, very simply, where does cash enter it? Where does the money come to support the effort?
Like the beverage companies are going to pay.
Right.
Whoops, what just happened?
It doesn't believe it's you. Yes, right. The beverage companies themselves will be paying for these bottles upon delivery.
I'm having trouble getting back into this.
So while Rick is worrying about that, I want to take
there we
this
go.
this segment and turn it upside down. So we've talked about who benefits from this. Is there any one or group that would be against this? Who would suffer from this?
Maybe a company that produces bottles.
Yeah.
Right.
Plastic bottles, yeah.
Exactly, right? So we have to think about their power, perhaps how to do something for them or with them or against them. Right? So you want to think about the barriers that would be between you as well. Who else might be against this?
Well, at least here in UI, we have like containers in the supermarkets. So perhaps the ones from the supermarkets, they're going to get mad.
Right, because they're now collecting and being paid, and you're going to take this out of their supply. Right, so there are people that are already collecting and getting money for bottles, and you're taking the bottles away. And the other people I'm thinking of, and this is generally a problem, I think, with this sort of thing, is it's us, right? We are lazy and we're accustomed to doing things a certain way, and asking us to take our bottles out of the garbage can and put them someplace else so they can be recycled is sometimes very difficult for us, no? To make changes in how we do things.
Yeah.
So those are, just some of the barriers, some of the things to think about when you're trying to make change is what's against it.
Right. So when we talk about stakeholders aren't only those who benefit, they're also those who resist. So the status quo, whatever is current, is always benefiting somebody. And whoever is benefiting from the status quo, from the current way of doing things, is going to resist the new way of doing things. Right? So when you're thinking about your idea, you want to think about who currently benefits from the way it's now done. I'm going to have to win them over later. How am I going to do that? Okay, so now we've got an idea a kind of product, and we've got these different stakeholders, different users, different people who benefit, and somebody who pays for it, and some people who resist it. We all clear about that?
Yeah, I think this is a good list, and it may not be comprehensive, meaning we may not have hit everyone, but we at least have enough to start. And one thing that jumps out at me is that these are already very different types of customers, right? So you have some that are corporations, some that are individuals, some that might be a barrier, and others that are ready to jump in. And what that means is, because they're all different, all the rest of the boxes that we fill in on this also have to reflect that, right? So just as an example, let me ask you, what should the customer relationship be between us and the public who may not recycle?
I think it should be strong. Like you should try to convince people to.
So how would you do that? Would you what would be the method for convincing them?
Like a marketing campaign.
Okay. So will it be you're going to go knock on every door of every house, or will it be some sort of mass marketing campaign?
Yeah, it could be like a billboard or to a like a video before that plays before YouTube videos play, or like
Right.
it could be anywhere really.
Excellent. But what we know is that we can't afford to talk to every person in the world about this directly, right? It has to be some sort of mass campaign, right? Which may be very different than our relationship with the beverage companies. Do you think a YouTube is going to work for a beverage company
No,
to
it
convince
has to
them
be
to
like,
do this?
no, like business to business. Like you have to go to an office and talk to the boss.
Right,
try-
exactly. So it's a very different customer relationship, even though we're talking about the same product, right? The thing we're doing is the same, but because we have a different customer there, the relationship is different, right? With the beverage company, it's probably a sales cycle, right? Some calls to find out who the right people to talk to in that company are, learning about them, learning how the company works. And on the other hand, a communication program to tell people about the benefits of recycling and convince them to do it and maybe make it fun. Who knows? Maybe it's gamified.
So we're gonna rush a little bit at this point because we're getting close to 5 o'clock, and we're gonna run out of time. We only have like another half hour to go. But I think you're all getting the picture here. So you would talk to yourselves in your group, and you would just brainstorm and fill out all of this chart the way Rick is walking you through it now, understanding that all of these components relate to each other. So every one of these people identified over here has to have something over here that identifies how you're going to reach those people. How are you going to convince them? Because each one of them is going to be different, right? So you would go back and forth and say, if I'm going to have to win over people who are resisting me or resisting this idea, then how am I going to do that? Maybe I go talk to them, but as Rick said, a YouTube video is not going to win over the people who are against me, right? I'm going to have to go convince them, and so on. So for each stakeholder, there's a particular way that you're going to have to communicate this to them to win them over or to sell the idea. Now, here's the key piece here. When you get done brainstorming this and you've filled in this whole chart, do you have fact or do you have assumptions?
Assumptions.
We got a lot of assumptions.
You have say that again, Octavia.
We got a lot of assumptions.
There are a lot of assumptions, exactly. Until you've done something else, all you know for sure is what your idea is. But you don't know for sure if anybody will buy it and who will buy it. You don't know for sure that the public will participate and recycle their bottles. Maybe they're too lazy, or maybe they're just too used to throwing them away and they don't want to bother collecting them. That's what's happened in certainly in our state, in Massachusetts. We were doing a very terrible job here at recycling bottles until they came up with an economic incentive to recycle bottles. They made a deposit So when you buy something in a bottle, you pay 5 or 10 cents more. And then when you return the bottle, you get the 5 or 10 cents back. And that created enough incentive to get people to recycle their bottles. That's how we ended up doing it.
Yeah. So again, great point, Rick, about that these are almost all assumptions. So let's just ask, what do you think the best way is to turn these assumptions into fact?
Research.
Research. Okay. Where would you research? How would you research this, for example?
I would hire like a team, and let them do the work. I don't know. Like online, but online there's a lot of not facts, so that could be tricky.
You can even do polls to ask around, like, for clients if they are willing to do it, if even beverage companies, like, I don't know, just gather information about the market units.
Yeah. So I think both those things sound good, and I think they're both excellent ways to start, right? To sort of get an idea of what the problem is and how it's approached. But I have a very big problem in general when we're talking about things that are good for people, which is no one will say they're against it, right? If I say, do you want to live in a cleaner, more environmentally friendly world, who would say no? You'd have to be a little crazy or at least very angry to say no. So what happens is if you just ask people, they will tell you what you want to hear, or they will tell you what is politically correct. And I see a hand up. So yes, there's a question. Take it.
Yeah, maybe the question should be like, would you be willing to take time out of your day to recycle or something like that? Or maybe like anonymously or something like that, where the it's not disclosed to the public that those are your answers or something like that.
Right.
I think there are ways.
There are ways. So we'll just tell you the trick that we use.
But first,
maybe-
I want to build on what you were just saying. There is a very famous anecdote that goes with this called the fruit and the donut. Right?
Right.
Can I tell it?
Sure, go.
Yeah. So there was a company in New York City that wanted to deliver fresh food to offices in New York City. And they thought, after they went and talked to a bunch of people, they went and they said, what would you like to eat? Would you rather have plates of fresh fruit, or would you rather eat donuts? And as Rick said, everybody thought about it and they thought, well, of course, it's healthier to eat fresh fruit. So they all said, well, or most of them said, we would like it if you brought plates of fresh fruit. So what the company did smartly is they tested it, and they put in around the office, around the buildings, they would put in plates of fresh fruit, but also plates of freshly baked donuts. And then they would come back the next day. What do you think was eaten? Did people eat the fresh fruit, or did they eat the donuts?
Donuts.
They all ate the donuts. All the plates of fresh fruit were untouched, and all the plates of donuts were completely empty. So it's a real problem, because people will not typically tell you exactly what they will do, because they often don't know what they'll do until they're faced with the choice.
Yeah,
True.
Maybe parts of the market research, instead of using what will you do, like we can ask about the past.
That's the secret. That's the
It's
secret.
going to be like the same, because your project should be original, but that's historical information.
Yeah,
Perhaps
and
is true.
it doesn't have to be the same, right? So you can ask them about other things that are similar or analogous, right? That may have happened, right? So asking about what they actually did do rather than asking what they would do is the secret. You ask about the past, they're less likely to lie because they're lying to themselves, really, when you ask them about, would you eat fruit or a donut? It's not that they're trying to deceive you. It's that they think that they should do that, and that's why they say that. So asking about the past, what would be an example that we could ask them about for recycling? What sort of things could be indicators that people would or wouldn't recycle?
Perhaps if they currently recycle like paper,
Exactly.
maybe in the future they will recycle like
exactly.
bottles.
And you don't even have to ask them that question, right? You can look at their trash and see if they split paper outside of their household trash, right? So you can observe what they do.
So the other part about this is so you observe what they do, you ask what they currently do, and then you ask, how does that work for them, right? Because you want to find out if they actually have a need to do it differently. So if I asked each of you, what do you currently do with your bottles? Let's take a quick sample. What do you do right now? You drink a bottle of beer or a bottle of wine. What happens to the bottle? What do you do with it? Anybody? Camilo, what do you do? Do you drink beer or wine? Do you drink anything out of a bottle?
No, we actually, in my house, we have, I don't know how to say in English, we have a well because my family house is in the countryside. So we don't actually consume bottles at all.
Okay, so you never get a beverage out of a bottle. Who gets bottled beverages? Any of you?
Juice, soda,
Milk? Who gets?
Yes, Rick. Here we throw it away, just with the normal household trash. We don't divide it. We don't spare them. No, we just throw it away.
You throw it away. How many people throw away their bottles? Anna, you got your hand up.
What I wanted to say is that here in Argentina, most of the time I do not recycle bottles, but in case of beer bottles, they usually cost less. The beer will cost less if you bring the bottle back. So that's the unique time when I recycle bottles and to use the same bottles in my house, because here the water is drinkable, so I do not buy bottles for anything else either.
So what I'm hearing is that a couple people you either don't use bottles or you recycle them within your own household, or you get some money back, or or a bunch of you throw the bottles away, like Octavia was saying, right? You don't. Did I capture all of those three possibilities?
No, I have another.
Okay.
With my family, we ask for a recycling company that come for our trash and paper and that kind of stuff. Because, for example, in my city, there is containers distributed by the city, but people really don't recycle in a good way. So sometimes for the bottle container, there is some trash or the bottles are not washed. So we prefer to ask for this recycling company because we know and we have confidence that they are going to really recycle the things, because with these containers, they're not always cleaned by the local government or something like that.
So a company comes to your house and you give them your bottles.
Yes.
Okay.
And we pay for it.
And you pay for that service.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 4, and then they probably resell the bottles later to somebody else. I see another hand up. Sebastian?
We in my city we have a company that puts special containers every couple of streets. So if you have a surplus of glass bottles, you go in there and chuck them into the container. They break, but it's better than breaking in your plastic bags.
So do you do that?
We also, yeah, every couple of weeks we have a closet full of bottles, wine bottles, well, depending liquor. We also have one of them for plastic bottles. Now, the mayor a couple of months ago thought he was smarter than the company that it did the recycling and altered the contract. So we don't have a company that takes care of glasses and plastic anymore. I mean, he's working on a replacement. So they're coming once a week, and they're always overflowing now. But for a while, we had a good system.
Okay, so we've got a nice sample here. Here's the question then. We've had 5 or 6 people speak, and each person identified something different that they do with the bottles. How does that stack up against the idea that we've got being developed here on the business model canvas? Do we hear any possibility here of collecting a lot of bottles to be able to recycle back to beverage companies?
It definitely sounds to me like it's more of a challenge than we would like it to be. Right? We would like this idea to just flow. It makes so much sense. It's so easy, and yet it's difficult for political reasons and for cultural reasons and for economic reasons and for all these reasons. It's so difficult to make these simple ideas that should work and are good for everyone, to make them happen. And so that's the challenge for all of us moving forward. How do we make these things flow? How do we make it work? And I just want to say, it's not that this isn't an important problem, right? It's not that it's not important. It's not that it's not a good idea. It's just that there are all these things in the way that we need to overcome. And that will be true of whatever you do. And the nice thing is, it's great to work on good problems. It's exciting.
Yeah. So here's a group that came up with 4 people brainstorming. You had 10 minutes. You came up with this possible business, and what you've already discovered is that it's not going to be so easy to get it going, because there's competition, there's resistance, there's problems with collection. There's costs. So when at the very beginning, Rick said, whatever idea you put out here at the beginning is not the idea that will actually occur. Well, that's what we've just discovered. So if you wanted to keep going with this idea, you have to do something called pivot. You'd have to refine it. You'd have to adjust it somehow to take into account what you've just learned from talking to people and finding out what they actually do or don't do. And that's only a sample of you guys, and what would happen when you talk to companies and you talk to all the other stakeholders. You'd start to get more information, and you'd find out what you have to do to adjust the original idea to meet the reality of those stakeholders. Got any questions about?
There's one question already up.
Yep.
It's just more like a comment. We haven't talked about really about like the lack of trust in the recycling system, and that could be a factor too. Like, for example, in my neighborhood, it's really known that the garbage truck like mixes all bins together. And I started like for like 6 months, I split my garbage into 2, to like recycling and non-recycling. And then I just happened to watch the garbage truck one night, and they mixed everything in, like everything. And I gave up. really, because I'm not taking my time out of the day to do that when in fact it's not going anywhere. So I think the lack of trust and confidence in the system and the company actually is a very big factor.
Excellent point. So we discover all these things, and we need to put later, in our activities, how we're going to deal with all this, or if we're not going to deal with it, right? So maybe we say, okay, we can't solve the problem for everyone, but we'll solve it for a small group. And maybe we'll start there. And that has to do with targeting, right? So we choose a market very specifically to begin with. We call it a beachhead market. And it's very, very important that you think carefully about how you choose, right? So to your point, do we start only with people that will care enough to segregate, and then we make sure they understand that we're really doing the job? And we only do this for maybe a handful of people in our town, but we start, right? So think about what is it that you need to get out of starting, right? Do you need to have a big win? Do you need to have a small win? Do you need to learn a lot? Do you need to make money because this is so expensive? Do you need to make money quickly? Do you need to convince people first, right? So asking where's the place to start, a very important part of this. And of course, we don't have time to go into this.
No, but here's a key piece on this. You may discover through this process that your original idea can't happen the way you were thinking about it. So as Rick said, maybe you start small and you just work with a couple of people who you want to work with, or you discover that is too expensive and it's never going to actually take off and work the way you were envisioning it. So you, instead of tweaking this and refining it, you decide, I'm not going to do this at all. I'm going to try something else. Here's the key piece. What we've just explored is a way to think about your idea and test it out before you've spent lots of time and money. The goal here is to figure out if your idea is viable before you've gone and spent thousands and thousands of dollars only to discover that there were no customers or there was no way to collect the bottles in the first place. You all following that? So what we're trying to show you is how do you start something, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be an idea inside a company. It can be an idea inside a college. It can be a new startup. It can be a new social enterprise. It can be any project. The goal here is to think about it in a way that allows you to avoid a lot of expenses later, so that you can do it quickly, get on to the next step. Does that all make sense to everybody?
So doing this today was not very expensive for us, right? It took a little bit of our time. We didn't have to pay any consultants. We didn't have to hire anyone, but yet we have some ideas and some things, let's call them opinions, assumptions that we've already formed about our various enterprises. We haven't had to build it to test it. And this is really important, right? So this is the key for this technique, which is it saves your resources until you really know what it is you need to build.
Right.
Right. So you can learn all this stuff by talking to people for free.
So Octavia's been exchanging some emails with me, and I think this actually goes to some of the stuff that you've written to me about. When you're doing a startup, I don't know what your experience has been. For me, when I started my first business, I didn't have a lot of money. And so I couldn't waste any. I had only a little bit of resources, just enough to get myself going and keep myself alive. So that's true for almost every startup, right? Almost every idea that you're trying to create, you don't have many resources. So you'd want to do it as inexpensively at low risk as possible. And that's what this exercise was all about. I think we want to switch. God, we got so much stuff. We could keep going for days on this, by the way. Rick and I did we taught once, we did what was it, 3 weeks at Smith College? It was 3 hours a day for 3 weeks. And we still barely scratched the surface. So this is a very intense topic. There's a lot of stuff to do here. But we do want to get you thinking about making a pitch. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Rick is really a pitch master. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to make a pitch and why you even care about that.
So first of all, there are lots of different types of pitches, right? Many of us, all of us, I assume, have been at least the recipient of a sales pitch. But the truth of the matter is, socially we're pitched all the time, right? So you might ask someone to go out on a date. That's a pitch. You might ask someone to help you with your studies, to join a study group. That's a pitch, right? You might ask someone to come and kick a ball together with you and some friends. That's a pitch. It's on a pitch, but that's a pitch. So there are many types of pitches, and the pitch that we're going to talk about today is what we call an executive summary. So if you think about your business, your enterprise, it's very easy for us to get into how it works, right? Into the mechanics of it. But that's probably more than we need to know in general. So for example, if someone was selling you a car, you wouldn't necessarily want to hear the intricacies of the internal combustion engine. But you'd want to hear, is it environmental? Is it safe? Does it get good mileage? Is it comfortable, right? So upper level sort of thing. So when you're doing an executive summary pitch, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to tell too much, right? So it's a quick look at the enterprise from 100,000 meters high or something like that. You tell us what's important. When you're pitching, you speak slowly and you think about who your audience is. Why should they be interested? What's important about it to them, right? Not what's important about it to you. So you have to think about that. Think about where you want them to get to at the end of the day, right? So what do you need from them? So for an executive level pitch, it's probably something like, I would love to get your feedback on this. So if you want feedback, you have to tell them certain things about them. Or you might say, I would love to know if there are people that you know that are interested about that. And one of you mentioned earlier on when you started thinking about a project, you thought first about what the problem is. And that's very, very important, right? You've got that right. If you don't know what the problem is, then it's going to be very difficult for you to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? How important is the problem? What is your solution? How does it fit now into the world we're living in? So this is where you might talk about things like, part of the problem is this lack of trust in the community of this type of project, and we're going to overcome that by doing this, right? So you might talk about what your secret sauce is, right? What makes you different? So how your solution is gonna work. And now, again, from the audience point of view, what is it that you need? Make sure you make that ask, right? The reason that you're pitching is for some reason. Make sure you enunciate that. Make it clear. when we're talking about sales, we say, ask for the order. So you're going to need different versions of your pitch for different types of audiences. If you're presenting to a school group, you obviously don't care so much about whether they're willing to invest, but maybe you want to meet their parents, right? So for this purpose, you're going to be next week, a week from today, you're going to be pitching. It should not be more than 5 minutes long. It should not be more than 5 or 6 slides. And just some hints about those slides. Don't fill them with text, right? Have our attention on you, the presenter, and less on the slide. The slide should be there to sort of illustrate what you're talking about, not something that we're going to read, because I don't know about you, but I can either read or listen. I really have trouble doing both at the same time. So keep it simple, keep it slow, keep your audience in mind. Why should they care, and what do you want from them? Does that make sense? Any questions, concerns? Did I rush too much? This is all with my notes, by the way, in Moodle somewhere.
Yeah.
Are we going to work with the groups we just worked? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you could do, you guys already all have, I didn't realize this until the end of last week, but there's already groups that have been set up, right? You all are working on different projects?
We have like 2 groups, one for a debate and one for the online course. So we are still divided into different groups for different activities. So there's no problem to have a 3rd group.
Okay, so we can have a 3rd group then, and you can form your own group. We just leave it up to you. You form a group, can be just 2 of you, 3 of you, 4 of you, form a group and be ready to pitch something next week. So we'll have a pitch competition. So it gives you a week to form a group and come up with an idea of something you want to convince everybody else about. Right? Does that make sense? It can be something.
It could be anything, like convince them to do something, for example.
Exactly. You can convince us to buy something. You can convince us to invest in something. You can convince us to change our behavior about something, whatever you want to convince us about.
But just remember, we have to want to do it. So you have to help us decide, right? So if you're going to try and convince Rick and me to grow hair on our heads, you're probably going to have to come up with something very special, because it's going to be really tough for us. So think really carefully about what works for your audience, right? And it's obviously not just the 2 Ricks, it's all of us in this room.
You're all going to be voting on each other, right? So you're going to be listening, giving each other good feedback. And you want to know, did I get convinced? Did they do a good job? And so in creating a pitch, what you'll notice is you having to organize your thinking and put your thoughts into a very particular sequence, so that when you end, you've convinced somebody about something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe
and my advice is always start from the end. Start with, what do I want from this group?
So the way these things come together, like we just went through this exercise of how do you think through a project or a startup business. When you're doing that, at some point, you're pitching that idea. Like if you really wanted to recycle bottles for the Heineken Corporation, you would have to sell that idea to somebody so that they would actually do it. And in order to make that happen, you have to make a pitch to Heineken or to the people who drink Heineken, and you want to collect their bottles. So having a pitch is always an essential part of a business plan. And that's how these two pieces come together. So if you have an idea about how to save the world or how to change our behavior so that we're recycling or engaged in social justice or slowing down deforestation, make a pitch and show up next week, same time next Monday, and we'll do it. Right? Sound good? I think it's next Monday. Maybe it's
but not the same time. I think it's a little later.
If
I remember correctly.
Right.
So we covered a lot today. We left a lot of gaps. A lot of things we didn't address. A lot of things that we assume, that Rick and I assumed about you and what you know and where you're coming from on this. We have a few minutes left. Any questions? Is there? And don't be embarrassed, right? If you have a question about something that's obvious, it's our fault. So please, all the stuff you heard, what rings true? What doesn't?
We could keep up with the project we started to think about in the section, right? For the pitch, if we want to.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess that's a question for me. Are you going to organize yourselves into these groups, or do you need us to do that? No, good.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for us? Was this a useful session? Because I know at the beginning, when last week we were asking what's your expectations, and a lot of you wanted to start getting really practical and getting, actually doing something. Did this session start to get you onto that? Was this useful? Yeah, I see some people say yes. Okay. Because I'm interested, anything else you want to learn, any kind of like practical stuff, let me know so that we can design some more sessions for you in the next couple of weeks so that you're getting everything that you want out of this 3-week period. Okay.
Oh, just one other thing about the pitches, right? So as the audience, we should come prepared with good questions.
Oh, yeah.
So think about the types of questions that you would ask someone who's pitching, right? So you don't necessarily, again, want to know the details of something works. Think about maybe the why questions, right? So not so much how will you do this, but why this and why will they do that and what makes you so sure about this, right? So think about good questions that you can ask to push the conversation forward.
My last question for you all is, I haven't been able to read what's being posted in chat. So did anybody post anything in chat that you would want me to know about or want Rick to know about? Did anybody post anything that we've missed?
Beer and donuts is what I saw.
Beer and donuts, huh? Okay. Okay.
I would like to know more about the options of funding.
About the options of funding?
Yeah.
About the types of funding that you might get for an enterprise?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have any money, for example.
Yeah, well, we just assume that none of you are, going to put your own money into this anyway.
I know that feeling. So you would like us to see if we can come up with a session on types of funding. Okay. What other topics? And so if I organize like a special session for sometime in the next couple of weeks, what topics would you want me to cover? Octavia, you got your hand up.
It would be very interesting to know your own experience on these topics, right? Both of you, Rick, I assume by the presentation video that you have experience, of course, in business. So from my side, it would be interesting to know your hands-on experience. Just
Excellent.
that. I like to add
Yeah.
on a special session.
Okay.
Awesome. You could hear about all my previous failures.
Yep.
That's why I don't want to commit the same mistakes.
Good. Excellent.
I guarantee you that everybody who ever does any of this always manages to invent new mistakes. What else?
Great. So finance and personal history of this sort of thing, of entrepreneurship.
Okay. That sounds
Types
good.
of research.
What?
Types of research, like we were talking about earlier, like
Mhm.
examples of
Types
ways
of
of research. market
Okay.
research.
All right. All right. I should let you go. It's 5:30 at our time, so I don't know what time it is for you, but we've been at this for an hour and a half. And
You've all done really well, by the way, right? So doing this sort of thing, difficult enough at any point, but to do it in an hour and a half and to come out with, you know, a little bit of learning, I think is just great. So really good job. Bravo.
yes. Yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed it. Okay, have a good rest of your day and evening, whatever time it is for wherever you are. And do I see another hand up?
Clapping.
Oh, that's a clap. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. See you all tomorrow.